Hi, I'm John F. Allen. And I'm R.J. Sullivan. And we're the Two Towers.
What's up, all, and welcome to the Two Towers Talk Show recap and review for Supergirl. I'm your host, Tower 1, John F. Allen, one half of the Two Towers. Today we'll be recapping and reviewing Supergirl Season 1, Episode 17, titled Manhunter. There will be details of the episode discussed here which are spoilers, so if you haven't yet seen the episode, please go watch it and then come back and view this show. Episode recap. John Jones reveals how he met Jeremiah Danvers and assumed the identity of Hank Henshaw, after which Colonel James Harper and Lieutenant Lucy Lane escort both John and Alex to the mysterious Project Cadmus. Tower Talking Points. Talking point number 1. Colonel James Harper and Project Cadmus. In this episode, we're introduced to Colonel James Harper, who is working to expose John Jones and basically put him through the ringer for having lied about being an alien and having assumed the identity of Hank Henshaw, who happened to be Harper's best friend. This role is played by Eddie McClintock. Some of you may recognize him as he was one of the show's stars of Warehouse 13. If you haven't seen that show, check it out. It's pretty cool. Anyways, James Harper is introduced, and he is an antagonist for the show, specifically where John Jones and Alex Danvers are concerned. Also, Project Cadmus from the comics is mentioned. I'll go into more details about Jim Harper and Project Cadmus in my Easter egg section. Talking point number 2. The fate of Jeremiah Danvers is revealed. During his interrogation, John Jones relates the story of actually what happened between him, Jeremiah Danvers, and Hank Henshaw to Colonel James Harper and Lieutenant Lucy Lane. When I saw this, I kind of figured out that this was pretty much where they were going from the start of the show with this, and I figured that that was why he had assumed the identity of Hank Henshaw. Basically, Hank Henshaw was a butthead and was doggedly pursuing John Jones and had pretty much blackmailed Jeremiah Danvers into joining him. At least he exposed Kara to the world and take her to Project Cadmus, where it's believed that aliens and other beings are experimented on for the purposes of producing weapons. So the fact that it was revealed that Jeremiah Danvers was the one who got into the fight with Hank Henshaw that resulted in Henshaw's death, but was also a casualty of Hank Henshaw, who stabbed him in the gut, basically, and he ended up dying. This was another layer to the John Jones character and his sense of responsibility for what transpired. So I like that they finally opened this up to the viewers. Tower talking point number 3. Kara feels powerless. Because she knows that intervening would put her in a bad light, and of course Alex doesn't want her to do that because her role as Supergirl is too important to the people of the world, specifically the people of National City, she has to stand by and watch as Harper and Lane interrogate both John Jones and Alex to the nth degree. And they've already basically marked them as traitors and threats before they even have any idea what transpired or what led John to assume the identity of Hank Henshaw and do the work that he's done thus far. So you can actually see and feel the powerlessness that Kara feels in trying to deal with this and not being able to help Alex or John in this situation. Tower talking point number 4. Martian Manhunter and Alex on the run. It became clear that both John Jones and Alex were going to be shipped off to Project Cadmus. And because of that, we don't know exactly what Project Cadmus is, but given some of the dialogue, we come to assume that it's not a good place. Now, in the comics, it wasn't that great of a place either, but for this show, it seems as though it's a place where aliens are experimented on and treated less than human, basically dissected in the name of science and defense. Once Harper and Lane are through interrogating John and Alex, they are taken away to this Project Cadmus, and technology is being used to dampen John's powers, so basically he can't just escape. This is where we leave them to their fates, but of course Kara appeals to Lucy Lane, and the both of them plan to liberate both John and Alex from the clutches of the evil Colonel James Harper. So you see that because of this, they have to be on the run from the law. So basically they're on the lam now, and they have to try and find a way to, I guess, clear their names or make it to where the public trusts them. And that's where the episode leaves off. So we'll see how this unravels in the future with John and Alex on the run. Tower talking point number 5. Lucy Lane, director of the DEO. John Jones did some type of alteration in the mind of James Harper and basically made him forget a lot of what transpired. Of course, everyone knows that they're on the run, but he also made it to where Harper decided to resign, as he had forcefully taken over the position of director from John. So John had altered his mind and had him step down as director of the DEO, and he assigned Lucy Lane as the new director of the DEO. So now that Lucy and Kara have come to an understanding, and both of them know that John and Alex are not enemies, it'll be interesting to see how the dynamic plays out. Will this be a situation where they help each other, but they keep it on the down low because the public still considers John and Alex public enemy number one? But it also begs the question as to why Superman, who in this episode is quoted as saying John Jones is one of the most powerful beings on the planet, but also one of its greatest champions, why doesn't he step forward and publicly acknowledge that John is not a threat? Maybe that'll happen in season 2. We'll have to see. Now we've reached the segment of the show called Pros and Cons. This is where I give you my opinions on the pros and cons of the episode. Starting with pros. I think the story in this episode was very solid. The backstory with Jeremiah Danvers and John Jones meeting for the first time, along with how much of a douche the real Hank Henshaw was, added layers to be explored in the future of the series. Hopefully they'll take this to the next level in season 2. I like that more DC characters are being brought into the fold, even though I'm not particularly fond of how it's being handled at the moment, specifically with the Jim Harper character. However, in my opinion, more John Jones is almost always a good thing. Cons. I wasn't particularly fond of how Jim Harper was handled in this episode, which I've mentioned before. I mean, he came off as a butthead, but then again, he was the best friend of the real Hank Henshaw, so there you go. Still, that's not how I would have liked to have seen the character handled. I'll go more into the character's history and the Easter eggs. But given the fact that he was a DC superhero in the comics, I'm not sure which direction they're going with this. I feel that if they don't turn the tide for this character at some point, it's a missed opportunity to develop a Team Supergirl, which I'd love to see. Imagine Supergirl, John Jones, and the Guardian. Pure awesomeness. Otherwise, I think that this was one of the best episodes of the season thus far. Time for the Easter eggs. Easter egg number 1. Jim Harper, aka the Guardian. Originally, the Guardian was a Golden Age superhero named Jim Harper who worked as a police officer in Metropolis's suicide slum while not fighting crime in his costume persona. He was also a friend and ally of the Newsboy Legion, a member of the wartime superhero group the All-Star Squadron, and grand cousin of Roy Harper, aka Speedy or Red Arrow. But for the show, he's been retconned as a butthead military brass. This was the main thing I didn't like about this episode, yet it will be interesting to see how they develop this character, if at all. Again, not exploring this character would be a missed opportunity in my opinion. In the comics, Jim Harper was eventually cloned by Project Cadmus several times over. This makes me wonder as to whether the Colonel Jim Harper we're introduced to in this episode is a clone, and or whether the Jeremiah Danvers that John Jones saw when he mind melded with Harper was a clone as well. The Guardian was created by Jack Kirby and Joe Simon, first appearing in Star Spangled Comics number 7 back in 1942. Easter egg number 2. Project Cadmus. Project Cadmus is a scientific research center located just outside of Metropolis. It is primarily known for its achievements in genetic engineering and its human cloning capabilities. Its notable creations include the Golden Guardian, which was a clone of the original Jim Harper Guardian, and Dublix, a DNA alien telepath who resembled a tall gray alien with horns. This facility was closely tied to the Superboy comics of the late 80s and early 90s. It was also heavily featured in the Young Justice animated series as the birthplace of Superboy. If you haven't watched that series, you should check it out. In my opinion, it's one of the best DC has ever produced. However, Project Cadmus has been around a long time before that. It first appeared in a comic titled Superman's Pal, Jimmy Olsen, number 133, back in 1970. Final thoughts. I like the direction that this show is going and the direction of the stories and the depth of the storytelling. I also like the fact that a lot of other DC comic book characters are being introduced slowly into the fold of the show. This gives me promise for season 2. Although this show started off with a rocky start, it has proven that it is up to the challenge of being better and better and churning out better and better episodes each week. I give this episode 4 out of 5 towers. In related news, we'll be airing recap and review shows for Supergirl, The Flash, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Arrow, and DC's Legends of Tomorrow on a weekly basis. Be sure to subscribe to our channel to get them all. While I hope to air the shows the day following the air dates for each episode, that's not always possible, but I should get them up before or by the time the next episode airs. Thanks so much for tuning in, and until next time, hey wah! The Two Towers Talk Show is sponsored in part by Showtime Cinema in Mooresville, Indiana. Their friendly staff is always willing to go the extra mile to make your movie-going experience an enjoyable and memorable one. Enjoy the comfort of their new cushioned seating in their spacious auditoriums, and while you're there, be sure to stop by the concession stand and purchase some popcorn where real butter topping is an option. They're located at 300 South Bridge Street in Mooresville, Indiana. We hope to see you at the movies. Be sure to check out our advertising partner, DC and Marvel, a universal alliance. They are a friendly Facebook community who offer digital comic book giveaways, games, tournaments, and viewing parties. Follow the link below and give them a look. You'll be glad you did.